Hello everyone, welcome to Cove Media. Whether you're here to watch, learn, or you just need to decompress for a little bit, I'm glad you're here and we're getting right into our lesson today. So, we're coming towards the end of us making our Pong game. We have a few lessons left, and so a lot of what we're going to be doing is sprucing the game up, making the code a little bit better, just adding some niceties so our game looks and runs just a little bit better, and not so much adding too whole lot of new features yet. We will be adding a little bit of sound in a couple lessons. But today we are going to be the main thing is giving the user a couple options with the game over screen. So currently whether the user wins or the AI wins, it just gives the player the option to go back to the home screen or back to our title. And what we're going to be doing is giving them the option one to return to the main menu or to quit out completely. And so we're just going to get right into it today. The first thing we're going to be doing is scrolling down a little bit, and we're actually going to be adding an additional function to our code. Now, this isn't necessarily required, but this is going to let us clean up the code just a little bit and make creating our buttons just a little bit easier. It reduces the code we have to do in our actual in the main function a little bit. So we're going to come up under reset ball. We're just going to be adding a new function. And we're going to just call it draw centered text. And we're going to be passing a few things to it: the screen, the font, our text, the actual rectangle or button, and then there's going to be a fifth thing, but we're not really passing it. We're actually be declaring it, and this is going to be the color for the text. So I'm going to create a variable called rendered. So this is going to look pretty familiar to what we've done, but instead of having to type this out for every button we want to do, we can just call this, going forward, we can just call this function. Equals rect. And I'm sorry, bro, I'm not really talking a whole lot. This is nothing really new. And again, we're just taking something we've been doing, we're throwing it into a function so that it's easier on us. And generally, the reason you're going to have a function, or you may not be familiar with classes, but there's another aspect in programming called classes, but it's just so we can take something and pull it out of the code, like our main, and we can call on it, so we're not having to do this every single time. Like in this case, we can do this for our buttons and making sure the text is centered and everything, than having to put all this in every time we want to do it in our code. So this function is complete. We're ready to use it. So we're just going to be scrolling down a bit. And the first area we're going to be cleaning up is actually our pause menu. What we're going to be doing is we're going to be taking this right here and we're going to be condensing it down. First things first, I forgot to do this earlier, because let's make sure everything is working. The function we added, we're not using anywhere in the code, so if something were wrong, it shouldn't actually show up unless there's just, well, if there's something very wrong, it would, but it probably wouldn't, and it shouldn't, because we're not using it yet. So here's the game running. Oh, my just going to lose. All right. So this is the screen here, this game over, that's going to be changing, as well as the pause menu, which I'll show that real quick. Which actually, this won't be changing. This should look exactly the same when we come back to it. So we're just going to quit out. So here, we're going to call our new function. Screen. And then this is what we're sending to it. Then the resume button. And then what? We're going to be doing the second one for the quit. Same small font. The quit text. And then send the quit button. And then from here, you can just delete these 4 lines of code. I'm going to comment them out. And to be super exact, I'm turning all this into text. But the Python will just ignore it because it's not part of anything. So now going back to the game, the pause menu should look exactly the same. All right. And there we go. Everything's the same. The functionality is there. So these 4 lines of code have been condensed down to 2. And this is going to help us in our game over, where we're going to be changing more or less this whole thing. So, just for the sake of keeping everything, some of this will remain the same, but just for my sake, for posterity, in case I want to come back to it, I'm going to turn this whole block into text. And now Python will just ignore it for us. So this first part, this first part's going to look, it's more or less going to be exactly the same. Our game over text. We want to pull our winner text, true, and our text color. There we go. Screen.blit. Game over text. To move this, see it. There we go. Sorry, I'm just scrolling my notes over a little bit. It's game over text dot get width. Two. Then our height divided by 4. There we go. Pygame. So now we're going to be drawing the rectangles to the screen. We're actually going to be reusing the same rectangles we created towards the top. For the pause menu. Button color. Width button, there we go. And then we're going to be using our function to help us out here. Small font. Now, something I'm doing here, I am going to, if I can get my words out straight, I apologize. So either this is our resume button, we're going to be using it also as our main menu button here. And in this case, we can get away with this because if we If we needed a resume and main menu button in the same screen, we would have to go up and create a third button. But in this case, since we're only using two buttons and they're each on a different in a different game state, I should say, we can we can just reuse the resume button. The game's not going to care. Only if in this case if we wanted a third button and then you had a resume, main menu, quit, we would have to create a third button for that to function properly. But we don't have to worry about that here because, again, each of our game states has at most two buttons that we're calling on. And for event and events. And because these are buttons, we are going to be using a mouse click. If I could learn to type, it would help us greatly. There we go. Pygame dot mouse button down and event button and if our resume button, in this case, if our resume button collide point is pressed, game state equals start. Oh. And so this is where the part of the code where we're reusing that resume button, because if we were wanting resume, we instead of game state start, we'd go game state play. But again, we're just, instead of having to create a third button, we're just reusing the resume because it is at this point not being used for anything else. And then elif quit button, which is all right. Oh. So we went from this to this, which, although we added a few extra lines of code to do what we wanted to, we were adding additional functionality. And so now let's test our changes, make sure everything's working, see if anything goes wrong. Everything looks to be working. All right. Let me just go ahead and lose real quick. Awesome. So now you see the same game message. In this case, AI wins, and we have our main menu button and a quit. We'll test our main menu. Does what it's supposed to. We'll lose again real quick. There we go. Quit. And everything works like it's supposed to. So that's where we're at today. So now we've created a new function to help us condense down some of our code, make it a little bit easier to do what we want to do. We're able to cut 4 lines of code down to 2 in our code here, and then we took our game over screen and added additional functionality. And so instead of the player always going back to our title screen, they're able to quit out if they're done playing the game after a win or a loss. I thank you all for showing up. Again, whether you're here to watch, learn, or just decompress for a little bit, I'm glad you're here. Hope you have a wonderful week and just keep on going.